unfortunately he disappeared in mysterious circumstances.
So that chap actually disappeared. So that man's name. So basically, Martin Freeman is playing. I don't want to mess it up, but he plays two at the same time, doesn't he? So he's actually underneath.
Weren't supposed to say that, but that's fine.
Sorry, but it's exciting.
Yeah, well, okay. So the next... Brilliant.
It's obvious though, isn't it? Because we even said, like, is that somebody dressed up?
Yeah, the prosthetics weren't amazing.
No, but now we know why. But we'll explain that further.
Obvious. Okay, so then the next part you cut forward to a few years after the disappearance of this professor who he'd followed his whole life, and then you go to him getting a letter and a picture. The picture is of the professor, but he looks much older now, and it's basically a tape that he then puts into his tape player, and it kind of says, I am not missing, please come to this, I need to talk to you, this is very, very of grave importance. And at this point, it's quite important to note that he's sat in a study, there's also kids' toys around the place, it looks like a family home that he is in, so that's quite important for later on in the movie, I feel.
Yeah.
You then and I think even the tape player that he has glitter on it with somebody's name, I can't remember what the name was, but that's pretty much what's on the tape player. So then you fast forward to him going to a very scruffy caravan. Yeah,
in the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. Goes to a caravan, he walks in, and there is this... what's his name?
His name in the film is Charles Cameron.
Charles Cameron, there you go. So Professor Cameron is looking very, very ill. He's attached to 2 or 3... Well, I think he's got 4 drips attached to him.
Yeah, so he's like
so he's obviously not very well. As a medical professional, is that... does that happen? Having more than one?
That's quite, for me, that looks very like either very Americanised or what's called palliative care. So you go home to die, sadly.
Okay.
Or you go home and it's a lot of, all the pain relief is everywhere, but you'd rather be at home. His home happens to be a dishevelled caravan.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically the start of it. And he gives him this folder and says...
like the only cases, wasn't it, that you couldn't...
Yeah, he says, I used to be like you, and I understand, and he kind of like gushes over him a little bit, saying, you're the reason I do this. Yeah, this is Professor Goodman, sorry, saying, this is the reason I do this, I'm so proud to meet you. And then he responds by saying, I was so naive, believing in this and believing in that, and not believing in anything. It's not right. And he says, I don't understand why. And he says, okay, then I've got 3 cases that I was never able to solve. Can you please look into these? Come back to me, please solve them, because I can't live I can't live knowing that these things really happened.
Yeah.
So that then sets up the whole film.
Premise of the film.
You have 3 cases that he will then have to try and solve.
Yeah.
And I think case 1, I'm going to let you take over if that's all right.
Yeah, no, I sure will. So case 1 is his name's Tony Matthews. He's actually played by
Paul Whitehouse.
Dan likes his chap.
Paul Whitehouse.
He's played by Paul Whitehouse. Really, really good. Really strange to see him in a non-comedic role, actually, which is quite strange.
The best acting he's ever done.
Yeah,
for me.
Really creepy. So he's a night watchman of like a misused or a down-used asylum. And so anyway, he meets Tony in a pub, and straight off the bat, we clocked that, like, it's lovely to see. Like, so it's like a social man's pub, isn't it? And it's empty, completely empty. It was just Tony at the bar, which was a bit strange, but we thought, maybe it's a Monday.
I thought he works there.
Yeah, or maybe he's the barkeep now because he's lost his job. So he's quite flippant and he keeps changing his attitude. And so whenever Goodman tries to ask him a question and starts to interview him about the case, he's very flippant, tells him to like bugger off.
It's more the fact that he asks him personal questions.
Yeah,
that's when he gets flippant.
Yeah. Then she sits him down, and Tony Matthews explains that his wife has died of cancer, and he feels really guilty that he stopped visiting his daughter. His daughter suffers from locked-in syndrome. So she basically is stuck in her own body and she can't communicate, she can't lift her head. So it's like a catatonic state, basically. He even said to Goodman that he like feels haunted by the spirit of a young girl in the asylum. And then that's when the camera draws out and flips to the whole scene.
Flashback.
Flashback. So you see Tony typical night's watchman. He's there in like what's left, it's like a little outhouse, in there. Inside, it sounds like there was like 3 or 4 wings or units of the asylum, and he's sat in there and he's drinking his coffee and he's like chatting along to the radio. All seems fine. He's on the radio to another watchman, a Russian chap, just like tuning in and making sure he's okay. And he says it was around 3:45 in the morning, which is a really like crap hour. Everything feels funny at that hour. It doesn't matter how much sleep you've had or haven't had. It's a rubbish hour of the day. And all of a sudden things just start going a bit wrong and a bit creepy. So like his radio goes really funny, doesn't it? And goes really like grisly. There's loads of banging. And all of a sudden all of the power goes down because it's all about everything's on a generator. Like it's just like makeshift lighting throughout the whole place. It's not the actual old fashioned thing. It's all completely knackered. So he's got a generator. So the generator's down. So guess what he has to do? I've got to go fix the generator. So he gets up, has to walk through, and the generator's on one of the wings where it looks like it's called the correctional facility or something. So
I reckon that's where they used to do the electric shock treatment.
Yeah, it looks like a bit. It looks a bit scary.
Bless him.
Yeah, so he has to walk all down these dilapidated corridors. He walks past a dead bird on the floor, like a carcass. Plugs the generator back in, which is freakishly, it just looks like he's quite literally been pulled out of the generator. Plugs it all back in. It's all back up and running. And he has to waddle all the way back. Sits, but then his cup is right by the door. And he's like, oh, I didn't leave that there, in like a good old like fashion. Picks it up, thinks nothing of it, tries to get hold of his mate in the other wing. He chats back going, it's not very nice here, it feels a bit weird here. And he's like, I'll be over in a minute, mate, and I'll do the round in a minute. And it all seems a bit calm, and then the generator goes off again. So now he's got to get his torch, it don't work very well. Walk all the way back, past the bird, plug it back in again.
Which is now disappeared.
That disappears at the third time, I think it was. Okay. Yeah. So they all pass the bird again, and like the camera's really clever because it zooms up on the bird again, doesn't it? And you think, well, what's that about? And this time the plugs are broken. So he's like, oh, what the hell's going on? Then there's loads of like banging and like horrible noises. So he then rushes back. And as he like flips, it's like typical proper horror fashion. He flips the light round because he hears a bang. And there's like a girl in there in a yellow dress. And like from that point Dan did jump.
Yes, I did.
Runs back, runs into his little outhouse, his little night watchman house, slams the door, and then there's banging on the door, the radio's really, really loud, the lights going on and off, and it's all very, very unnerving and horrible. Eventually he gets really brave.
He becomes a proper Cockney geezer at this point.
He flings the door open, I'm going to get you, and all this.
There's a really good bit where he shines, and they do a really good job of making the torch, even though the torch he has is massive, and in real life that torch would probably be very, very bright. They do a good job of only making it look like the main beam of the torch is the only source of light. You look down straight, and it looks like there's somebody in a parka looking, like sat down, looking straight at him the whole time.
Yeah. So it's like, because there's loads of decapitated, like, they're all beds everywhere, isn't there? And there's mannequins everywhere as well. Don't know why, that's creepy enough. And then all of these correctional rooms, like these cells, all of the chains keep falling off them. They were all locked before, but then they fall off them, and he has to go, he's stupid, he goes inside one of the rooms, goes in there, and then there's loads of mannequins all just lined up around the whole room. Runs over to this one with a towel on, and it happens to have a little nurse's outfit, like a patient gown on it. Turns around, and then there's a spindly, like really skinny little girl in a yellow dress, and she had like no eyes, and she looks like something off of like a Snapchat thing gone wrong, like a Snapchat filter face gone wrong. And she's going up to him, and she's like, her really, really, really long fingers are going in his mouth.
Nicely painted yellow, though. I don't know why.
Yeah, very clever. And like all over. And then that cuts then straight away, and we're brought back to Goodman. And then literally goes like gung, and then it's like case 2.
Yeah, but sorry, before that he goes to the priest.
Oh yeah, then he has to go to the priest to say like, do you really believe him? Do you really believe Tony? Wasn't it?
Yeah, he basically agrees and says, "Yeah, we're all, why wouldn't I believe him? He's one of my flock." And at this point, Goodman is still very much in the camp of this is not true. He's just,
Yeah.
he's obviously sad because of the loss of his family and his daughter. He's just not in a very good place. He's obviously drinking quite a bit.
Yeah.
So he writes it off.
Yeah, so
he pretty much writes it off. And then we are on to part 2.
Yes, case 2.
I'll do case 2. I liked case 2.
Case 2.
Case 2 was my favourite. What was the lad's name?
So it was funny because it was a bit of a ongoing thing when nobody could get it right on the film.
Oh yeah.
So Simon Rifkind, and he keeps repeating it, doesn't he? Rifkind.
Yeah.
And they go Rifkind.
So to paint the picture, this young lad he's supposed to be playing somebody, I would imagine, who's around 18, still living with his parents. He comes in, he's very shy, very jerky and very nervy. He invites Goodman into his house, and he at the door he asks him to see identification because he doesn't trust who he is. He's got about 15 padlocks on the door. He then speaks to his parents, says we're just going upstairs. He runs upstairs. Goodman sort of hangs back as you would in the hallway, waiting for the parents to sort of come and see him. He puts his head round the corner. Is really creepy. Very similar to the last scene with the dolls. It looks like the kind of like the dolls. It looked like one of them was staring into the corner. Very Blair Witch kind of look.
Yeah.
And again, the two of them, both the mother and the father, are stood by the sink doing the washing up, but not moving at all, and just faces looking at the wall, and you can only see the back of their heads. And then he gets called up the stairs, and he also hears some words being spoken in the attic. He looks in the attic and sees somebody wearing medical scrubs, and then the young lad, pulls him back into his room. So yeah, very eerie start to this one.
Yeah.
And then of course he starts talking about what sort of happened to him, and his room is a lot of satanic stuff. So I don't know what the technical term it is, but it's like the devil with the horns, and looks like a lion or a goat. It looks like a goat with horns.
Yeah.
And there's lots, and he asks, "Why have you got these on?" He says, "I'm doing some research, and I like to have it out in front of me just in case."
Just in case. I don't want to look at it. I look over there.
And then he had a picture of Sooty and Sweep, which is quite funny. That was one of the lighter
British
moments.
Humour.
That is very British humour, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get transported to the day that his incident happened.
Yeah.
And he is told that I was terrified because I'd failed my driving test and I couldn't tell my parents. And so I was driving home from a party at, what time was it? Probably 3:45, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it was 4:45.
Driving home from a party, and then his mum and dad are on the phone to him, complaining to him, saying, "You're rubbish at this, you failed this, you've lied to us about this and that, you keep hanging the phone up on him," but he's not actually hanging the phone up, it's the signal of the phone he's going. He's getting more and more tense as it goes along, and he picks the phone up for the fourth time, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then you see what I thought was a woman. It looked like a woman. He hits a woman, goes over the top of the car, and then you hear it hit the back of his car. He then gets up absolutely distraught, and it's actually quite funny in a weird way. He's sort of trying not to look. He's out of the car, sort of side straddling it, kind of looking everywhere else but down at the ground, and sort of saying, "You okay? You okay?" And as he looks back, this is when it gets a bit weird.
Yeah.
It is a devil thing, like a demon, like as we've explained. It's like a goat with horns. And it's like white. It's strange, whatever it is.
Yeah.
He then gets back in the car and drives off. Weirdly enough, the car then starts to malfunction and pauses, and he does another British thing you would do. It's rather than run, he rings the AA, which I liked in this scenario. And they basically asked him a few questions and said, "We'll be there in 45 minutes, it's fine." This all leads up to the car being attacked by this demon, devil, whatever we're going to call it. I think we know the name of it, but we'll come to the name later on. Who is on the top of the car, and he then goes out. He opens the back seat of the car, gets in the back, and grabs the young boy from behind. Very jumpy moment. And he says, "Stay!" And my favourite line in the whole film, this young lad just goes, what does he say? "Fuck that."
Just jumps out.
And just runs. That's a brilliant line. He runs off. And that's pretty much the end of his story, I believe.
Yeah.
Unless I've missed anything else there.
No, that's perfect. And so, again, it then shoots back to Goodman again, and it's the fact of he's having to then think about, he then goes back to the woods, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah, so he goes back.
Oh, sorry, we forgot. There's a weird, very Evil Dead. There's a big tree thing.
Yeah, the tree.
That grabs the young lad and picks him up, and then it cuts. So,
and it's a really good, if you can all remember Evil Dead fans, like that sweep of the floor. So like the camera sweeps across the woodland floor with all the leaves and like rushes up to it.